Welcome to The Real Deal. I'm Bill Dendy, and I'm grateful to be here to talk to y'all about people who've done great things in their lives and give back to their community. And I'm so grateful today to have with us as our guest, Mr. Rafael Cruz. Oftentimes referred to as Ted Cruz's father, but his own story is remarkable, and he's here to share it with our Rotarians. His story from moving from Cuba to Texas, the United States of America, and how he did so much in his early years. And because we're talking about early years and doing so much, I know a lot of our high school Rotarians, our interactors, working with Miss Shirley Heitzman, who's here with us today, have had questions about what can I do at my age? Heck, I'm 17, 18, 19 years old, I'm going to college. What's expected and what can we do? And what have others done before us? And I know that we're going to love our guests today. Rafael, thank you for being with us today.
Great to be with you, Bill.
You know, I had the opportunity to see you speak before a group called Proclaim Cuba.
I remember.
And Proclaim Cuba has been a group that's been dear to our Rotarians here in Dallas. We've done 3 trips to Cuba to do humanitarian work, and it's always amazed me how precious the churches are to the people in Cuba. Can you tell us a little bit about the conditions of Cuba today, and what is it like today in Cuba as we go through the last couple of years of COVID-19?
Well, to understand the conditions in Cuba today, we need to learn about what Cuba was before Castro. Before Castro, Cuba was tied with Argentina for the 2 richest countries in Latin America. It was a country that had a 1-to-1 exchange with the U.S. dollar, 7th and 9th highest in the world in per capita income of skilled and unskilled labor, higher than half of Europe. Today, the average salary in Cuba is about $30 a month. $30 a month. People are starving. That is a result of communism.
That communism came about through things that you shared with us as living history. Tell us about the history that you were part of.
Well, you know, my early childhood was very normal. I spent it swimming. I lived half a block from the sea. But by the time I was 13, a very oppressive military dictatorship took over Cuba. And these people began killing dissidents. 20,000 people were killed the first year. There was the army was extorting money from businesses, and it was a very difficult time, even though the economy was booming. And it was during that time that a young revolutionary by the name of Fidel Castro, he and his brother and a group of university students attacked an army garrison on the easternmost part of Cuba. And most of them were killed. But Fidel and his brother were arrested, and then instead of being put in prison or executed, they were sent into exile. Then they went to Mexico and began plotting a revolution. Meanwhile, I was in high school at the time, just entering high school. Student protests began taking place around the country. And student protests were quickly met by billy clubs. At that time, it was kind of a badge of honor to have a patch on your head where a billy club hit you. And pretty soon after that, Castro from Mexico began plotting a revolution. And so in Cuba, among high school students and university students, started what was called the civic resistance. Not much difference from what you've seen in movies about the Second World War or about the resistance in France, where we were leading normal lives, but at the same time, those kids were involved in sabotage and propaganda and trying to recruit other peoples for a coming revolution.
And you were involved with that?
And I was involved in that.
And how old were you at that time?
Well, it started when I was about 14, 15 years old.
But you didn't participate at 14 or 15, did you?
Oh, yes.
And you got your badge of honor that early?
Well, I got beaten a couple of times. But anyway, when I graduated from high school, I was 17. I moved to Santiago, that same city where Castro had attacked that army headquarters several years before, and I reported to the underground there. And I had only been at the university for 2 months. I remember the date was November 29th, 1956. And the head of the underground, a university student, summoned 100 of us students to an empty school building one evening. And he said to us, Castro is landing tomorrow. And 7 o'clock in the morning, half of you are going to attack the police headquarters. The other half will be support troops for Fidel when he arrives. I was in that second group. Now, you need to understand, Bill, we all thought Fidel was a freedom fighter. I mean, he talked about freedom and liberty, and he was very inspirational, especially to us kids that didn't know any better. So the revolution was fought by kids. So anyway, we spent the night in that building in the morning, early in the morning. 50 of them went to attack the police headquarters. The other 50 of us were around that army barracks. We didn't even have any weapons. Fidel was supposed to bring us the weapons. 7 o'clock in the morning, a runner comes, abort, abort. Fidel didn't land. Unfortunately, the other group didn't get the memo, and most of them were killed in that police headquarters attack. Well, you can imagine the university was closed immediately, and 4 of us decided we better get out of the city. We got in a car. One of the other boys had a car, and so we started out of the city. We get stopped by an army patrol, and we get taken to that same army barracks that we were supposed to attack 3 or 4 days before. And as they walked us in, you could hear the chanting from the soldiers, "To the firing squad, to the firing squad." I thought that would be my last day on earth. But you know, I thought, boy, we got lucky. They had arrested the son of an army major who went to college with us. He didn't know we were in the underground. All 4 of us cried out his name, and he came and he vouched for us, and they released us.
Oh my God.
And I said, oh boy, did I get lucky.
The second time that week, I guess. The first time you were not in the 50% that were
that got killed.
massacred.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I thought I got lucky. Later on, years later, when I met my Savior, Jesus Christ, I realized it wasn't luck at all. God had a plan for my life. But anyway, we got out of town, came to my hometown, and resumed my activities in the underground in my hometown. 7 months later, I got arrested by trying to recruit someone who was an informant from the government. And this time, and you know, they wouldn't put you in jail. They would put you in an army barracks where nobody knew where you were. Now, typically, when Batista's regime would capture somebody, that person would appear shot 3-4 days later on the streets with a pistol on their hands. And the headline was always the same. That person tried to attack an army patrol. They got killed in self-defense. So I thought that would be my fate too. I went through some very severe torturing about every 4 hours. They would take me out of that cell and just beat me to a pulp to the point that you were totally numb. Now, 4 hours later, everything hurts. Then they will take you out and do it again. And this went on repeatedly about every 4 hours.
Now, at that point, mentally, were you giving up?
Well,
parents aren't able to
my
help.
parents didn't even know where I was. You know, they didn't let anybody know where you were. My parents didn't know, but they were frantic, of course. But, you know, I thought my fate would be the same as the others. I would be shot and appear shot on the streets. And actually, it was that realization within myself that allowed me to endure. I thought I'm going to be killed anyway. So anyway, one day they pulled me out of that army cell early in the morning, and the colonel said to me, "We're going to release you. But if a bomb explodes in this city, we're coming to get you." I remember I said to that colonel, "But Colonel, how can I be responsible for what other people do? He said, I don't give a flip. If a bomb explodes in this city, we're coming to get you. Well, anyway, I was able to call my father. My father came, pick me up, took me home. You can imagine when I got home, my sister and my mother, I was totally drenched in blood. My clothes were red with blood. I got gashes all over my face, and I was pretty badly beaten up. My sister and mother were hysterical, and I realized that I couldn't stay at home and expose them just because, and I was being followed. I realized afterwards the reason they released me was so they could follow me to see if I would contact my superiors. The only choice I had was to get out of Cuba.
Now, back then, how easy is it to get out of Cuba,
Well, it was,
when they're watching?
It was very difficult. But I had been a straight A student in high school. And let me tell you, there is a good thing about getting good grades in high school. Because I have been a straight A student in high school, I wrote to 3 universities in the U.S. The University of Texas was the first one to accept me. That's how I became a Texan. So with the acceptance letter from the University of Texas, the American Embassy gave me a 4-year student visa. Now I had one more hurdle, because you needed a permit from the government to exit Cuba, and I couldn't get it because I have been involved in the underground, but corruption exists everywhere. And a lawyer friend of my father bribed someone in the Batista government to stamp my passport with an exit permit. So one morning, my father had bought a passage on a ferry boat from Havana to Key West. While the car was in the garage, I laid in the back seat, and my father and mother and sister sat in front seat, and my father drove out of the garage all the way to that dock. And I had an exit permit, I had a visa, so I had no problem getting on the boat, and it was a very dramatic scene because I didn't know if I would ever see my parents again. And my mother and sister were hysterical, crying. My father was trying to be strong, and I was just beside myself because I didn't know if I'll ever see them, but I was at the same time excited to come to the land of the free and the home of the brave. I didn't have any money, couldn't speak a word of English, just had enough money to get on a bus all the way to Austin. And anyway, got to Austin, and I arrived there about a month before school started. And before I left Cuba, a high school English teacher gave me a piece of advice. He said, go to the movies every night. So when I got to Austin, it was a quarter was what the movies cost. And I would go to a movie at 6 o'clock and watch the same movie 3 times. And I did it as work. I mean, I just concentrated and tried to associate words with actions and words with objects. And, just try to catch from the previous scene of the movie. I was looking for phrases. I did that daily for a month. And I learned to think in English in 1 month.
That's phenomenal. And that is going from zero, no money, not much money.
Not much money.
Not much money.
Not much. But
not even speaking the language.
But again, God is so gracious. That God that I didn't know. Without my even applying, I was offered what was called a Good Neighbor Scholarship that covered my tuition. Tuition was $200 a semester, but that was like $1 million to me. And so it was offered to me by the Office of Foreign Student Affairs at the University of Texas without my even applying. And then the university helped me to get a job as a dishwasher. Because as a dishwasher, you don't have to talk to anybody. You just wash dishes, they pay you. And at that time, you got your food for free in the restaurant. So it was very interesting. I would work 8 hours and I would eat constantly those 8 hours, so I wouldn't have to eat the other 16 because I didn't have any money. And let me just say something to the young students listening to me. All through college, I worked 8 hours a day and took a full load. I graduated in 3.5 years. You can do it. Don't come with the excuse, my parents don't have any money. Go to work.
I love that message, and I think that's an important message, that it is possible. And I don't think that we're hearing enough of that personal responsibility at an early age, but we can do it. We still live in a land of opportunity, and there are ways to get the job done. And I know it's more challenging, it costs more money, but I see so many success stories on a weekly basis that I know it can still be done.
Well, as a matter of fact, you know, it happened again with my son. You know, when I graduated from college, I went to work for IBM and had a couple of jobs. Within 7 years of leaving college, I had my own business, and I was very successful in oil and gas exploration. And in the mid-'80s, when the oil crash came, I lost my business, lost everything. And this was about the time that my son Ted was about ready to go to college. We didn't have any money. So he was accepted at Princeton, and we went to met with the body at Princeton, and I remember at that time it was $22,000 a year for tuition, room and board, books, everything. And basically we paid a third. The university gave Ted a third in scholarship, and they gave him 2 jobs to work to pay for the other third. And that's how he paid for his university.
I bet a lot of people don't know that. I think that's important, that it is possible. And I think, I don't know, sometimes I think you appreciate it more when you have some skin in the game and you're working towards it.
But you know something, talking about Ted, as a Rotarian, I want to tell you a story that you would love. When Ted was about to enter high school, through a client of mine, we introduced him to a man by the name of Roland Story. Roland Story was a well-recognized Rotarian, and he was heading an organization called the Free Enterprise Institute. So now he had Ted reading Adam Smith and John Locke and Plato and Montesquieu and Hayek and Bastiat and the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers and Milton Friedman. And then they formed a group of 5 kids. They called them the Constitutional Corroborators. They hired a memory expert, and they taught these 5 kids, Ted was one of those, to memorize the U.S. Constitution. For the next 4 years, all through high school, Ted traveled throughout the state of Texas, speaking at Rotary clubs, a half-hour speech on free market economics and the Constitution. And he did over 80 speeches, about 20 a year for 4 years, Rotary clubs all around Texas.
That is phenomenal. And I bet a lot of our Rotarian friends did not know this, and I think that's a great story. And you know, Rotary, 1.2 million members worldwide.
Wow.
It's the largest service organization. It's non-political, non-religious, but because of that, they get so many people involved. But I think everybody, regardless of their religious affiliations or their politics, in the United States, we should all be reading the Federalist Papers. We should all know the Constitution and uphold that. And
as a matter of fact, going back to where we're talking about kids working through school, you know, if we look at the preamble of the Declaration, where it talks about those unalienable rights from our Creator, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, note that happiness is not a gift. Happiness is not one of those unalienable rights. It is the pursuit of happiness. You got to work to get it. And goes back to individual responsibility.
I love that. Now, Shirley Heitzman is here with us, and she
Hello, Shirley.
is working with our interactors this year. And our interactors are the high school students, and she also has worked with Faith Family Academy, high school here in Dallas for several years, and works daily with these young folks. And Shirley,
well, I'm just excited to be here, and I'm so excited because these stories are so inspiring for myself and for our students. We're just inspired to hear about what a difference that teenagers can make. how the importance of hard work to succeed in school and in life. So I'm just thrilled to be here. And well, what would you want to share with high school students today?
Well, actually, one of the things that with high school and university students that is very disappointing is you hear statistics that about 50% of university students today say that socialism is a better system than free enterprise. And you know something? I will ask 17-year-olds, what is your biggest beef with your parents? What is your biggest complaint? I want my freedom. Isn't that right? Why would you embrace a system where you have absolutely zero freedom? As a matter of fact, you have been told in your schools, in your universities, maybe in your high schools, socialism is the control of the means of production by we the people. That is a lie. Socialism is the control of the means of production by almighty government. The people have zero say. So if you want individual freedom, you want to forge your own future. See, we hear a term very often today, and that term is equity. Equity is not the same as equality. Equity is equality of outcome. That has never worked, because under equality of outcome, nobody works.
And I tell you, mentally, conceptually, at a high level, it seems so nice, so kumbaya. We're all going to work together and we're going to share the fruits of the labor. And if everybody's putting the same amount in and we all got the same amount out and it was a very fair system, maybe it would work. But I've never seen a system that has been able to manifest it here on this earth to not end up with a few people, end up with an oligarchy or just a few people controlling all the means.
Absolutely.
And reducing the individual choice. I don't see it working anywhere.
As a matter of fact, we have a very good historical, I'm a student of history, especially early American history. When the Pilgrims arrived in America, after that first year that was very rough for them, they decided to try a communist experiment. They basically said, look, we got all this land before us. Why don't we work all this land together and let us share equally in what the land produces? Sounds very romantic, doesn't it?
Perfect.
Well, that
Christians, you think you could do it, but
it was a total failure. And I'll tell you why it was a total failure. Because you look like a very eager guy. Maybe you were willing to work 12 hours a day, but I wasn't so eager. Maybe I was working 2 hours a day. How long do you think you were going to work 12 hours a day while I work 2, and we're going to get the same recompense? Probably no more than a week. So nobody worked. They almost starved to death. But they were smart enough and flexible enough that at the end of that first year, they said to Governor Bradford, this didn't work. So the governor said, all right, each of you take your own plot of land, you work the land, you feed your family. And the free enterprise system was born in America after that first year of their existence. Now the question is this: if we tried it 400 years ago and it didn't work, why would we be dumb enough to want to try it again? It doesn't make sense.
Well, I think that it's a great message in that if we want the freedoms, free enterprise system does give us the freedom. Within Rotary, we used to do the Camp Enterprise within our district, and I thought that was a wonderful thing because Hollywood seems to always make out the entrepreneur is the bad guy. Yet so much of what we have in the city behind us is because of that entrepreneurial spirit that created businesses, that provided the jobs, that then provide the schools and provide our society. We need to remember these things, and as young people, we need to be ready to go out and take our place and know that we've got the same opportunities, and you can start at the bottom with 000 coming from someplace else and get to the top. And several times on The Real Deal, we've talked to people who've come from other countries. People still want to come to America because it is the land of opportunity, and it's up to us to keep it that way. And it's especially up to y'all, that next generation coming up. You high school students, you college students, we're dependent on you. And read the history books. Don't fall for some of the other things, but that's a whole nother issue. And I don't want to get political too much, but you know, life is that combination of different facets. And this is but one facet. And Rafael, I'm so glad you were here to share
It's
with us
such a
today.
pleasure, Bill.
God bless you.
Thank you so very much. God bless you. Shirley, it was great
Thank
being
you.
with you.
Thank you.